It's great to have back with us Coach Palazzo. Um, Prospect Podcast. I have me here, Coach Schuman, and Coach D on to talk more with his former university and the head coach of Montclair State, Coach Palazzo. How's everything going, Coach?
It's going good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great. Last time we had you on, we talked a lot about Montclair State football, a lot about what you're doing to build it, and I'll let Derek take the lead a little bit. But you guys went up to Canada, I guess, in the spring, and went and played there. So I'll let Derek lead from there. But really glad to have you back on, talk some more Montclair State football.
Definitely.
Yeah, Coach, I appreciate you coming back and whatnot. I know you've been at it with this for a while, and it was something that we had you kind of brought up a little bit kind of in the winter workouts and whatnot. And then ultimately it kind of worked out and you followed through with it. So just explain a little bit kind of how Division III spring ball works, and then ultimately kind of what you were able to do, and what you just kind of finished up doing and how you finished spring ball. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So in Division III, normal spring ball, it's not like Division I or Division II. You are allowed 16 practices, and since COVID happened, we do have equipment now, which is a big step forward. But there's still no spring game. You're not allowed to do 11 on 11. There's no type of ending to it. It's just you practice 16 times and you go home for the summer. With this, if you do an international competition, you're allowed one every 3 years. So basically the thought is everybody in your program gets to do it once. Then you can get 26 practices and then also be able to end your spring with a game. So our swim coach here at Montclair State, Coach McLaughlin, who was around when you were here, Coach,
He whooped my ass. He whooped my ass for that. A 1 credit summer course. Coach kicked it. I didn't know you could sweat in water.
Yeah. So anyway, he has a line he tells me, and he says, look, there's two types. There's teams and there's programs. And the difference is in a program, you have to have a vision for what you're doing. You have to do things outside of just playing the game and showing up on Saturdays. You gotta have a vision. So last year we had 43 seniors on our roster. So, with that line in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, what are we going to do after these kids walk out the door? Because we're graduating 9 seniors on defense, graduating a ton of guys that played on offense. How do we get the next group of guys ready, and how do we keep the excitement rolling, and how do I create an awesome experience for the players in our program? So I've been sending emails about this Canada trip since June of last year. So it's been almost a full calendar year that I had to put some work into this, and some of our coaches on staff, were helping me with that. But it was a long time in the making, but what an incredible experience it was, and I'm so thankful. And now, I plan on it being part of our culture moving forward.
Yeah, it's so cool. And then, looking at it, look, it's obviously a way for you to, take the next step in terms of, obviously flipping the roster and whatnot. Cause you gotta get those guys to buy in. And at the same time, like, to be able to steal extra practices and then ultimately end with a game itself, a lot of the things that coaches don't really, look at and whatnot, like, you're talking about so many new guys to the roster in terms of, with graduation and whatnot. And now to be able to kind of get more practices and then ultimately work that travel thing out, right? Because a lot of these guys travel, like, that's a big thing too. I just think it's so cool. And I've seen, I saw a couple other Division III guys do it. I think some guys were in Europe and whatnot. But you ultimately make the choice to go up north. So how did that all come about in terms of, communication and kind of, how'd you get, University of Ottawa to do it? Like, what did that entail?
Yeah. So when I was thinking about doing the trip, and again looking at a roster and seeing how many guys were going to graduate, um, I knew this could be a great opportunity for the program. So what I did was the first person I called was Coach Fagiano from Utica, and he had just done this trip,
Yep.
and I didn't know him. We may have brushed up against each other at the convention or something, but I've never really worked with him or anything. So I just emailed him. I said, hey, I'm interested in doing this. Is there any potential leads you can give me on how to get this started? Because I have no idea. And he
Right.
was great. He called me right away. Being that he can't do the trip again, he couldn't do the trip again. He gave me all the contact information for the team he just played. So the blueprint kind of was there already, and it
Right.
allowed us to make those connections and have those conversations, and it was great. Now we did not play the University of Ottawa. University football in Canada is pretty good, probably a little bit higher level than Division III.
Right.
We played a club team, the Ottawa Sooners, who do have
Got
a really good relationship with U Ottawa, so they use their facilities, and we actually were able to stay in the dorms at the University of Ottawa. So
Wow.
yeah, it was a really cost-effective trip because we were able to stay in the dorms. We ate on their campus. I mean, we left campus a little bit and did some sightseeing, and we had a dinner off campus as well. But it really helped to be able to do all those things right there and then play on the campus, and it made things a little bit easier to plan.
It's such an interesting thing to go and play like up in Canada like that is it and use that model to like attract players. Like what was some of was that a thought process like that was going to be something that would really help from a recruiting standpoint to be different than other people in your conference? Is that something you also see more teams doing in the future?
Yeah, I think so. It definitely was my thought. I knew we'd have a lot of roster openings, and we end up getting 10 mid-year transfers. And, I posted on Twitter that we were doing this trip as soon as our fall season was over. So, I do think that there was a factor there that, hey, I could come to Montclair this spring and actually get to play a game. And for us, from an evaluation standpoint, we really got a good look at some of the kids that were spring transfers because we saw them under live fire. And
Yeah.
I can honestly tell you that my evaluation of certain players changed after that game, where I had kind of like, all right, this is what I think this guy could be from the spring practices. And then once we put him under live fire, some guys really impressed us and some guys really didn't show us what we want to see. So it was a really, really good opportunity for the program. So, yeah, I mean, I'm always trying to do different things in our program. I don't want us to just be stagnant. I want us to have different experiences. A lot of our guys never travel out of the United States. So this was something that they got an opportunity. I had to get them a passport and then
Yeah.
to go to a different country. So it was, all of those things are things that I would have wanted out of my college experience playing. And I did get some of those things obviously playing here, but I want to continue to do that in our program.
That's really cool. That's really cool. It's funny because when like at the Division I level, Dion was trying to do that Colorado versus Syracuse kind of spring game. You guys have gone out and actually done that, and I think from a recruiting standpoint, especially with the transfer portal, all these things are becoming bigger and bigger factors. How important? Because I think last time we spoke, it would start to become a bigger thing for you. But how important is the transfer portal for what you guys are doing? And is it something that you see continue to be more important or less important for you guys?
Yeah, I actually just got asked this question the other day, and Derek, you can back me up on this. The transfer portal to me at Montclair State, it's been very consistent. Everybody could tell you, oh, transfer portal is so different now. But Montclair State's always been a place where transfers come home. I mean, Derek's one of them.
Always.
So, it's that philosophy here. Like, obviously, I want to do my homework on a kid. I don't want to just go pluck a kid from the portal just because he's a good player and not do my homework on him. Obviously, you want to do your research and make sure the kid's going to fit your culture and fit what you're trying to do. But Montclair State's always had transfers. We've always had a lot of success with transfers. I think Derek, Mike Jump, your quarterback was a transfer. Tommy Fisher was my quarterback. He was a transfer.
Transfer.
Yep. So and it's been part of our DNA for a long time because of our location, because of where we're at, because of our affordability. So the transfer portal has always been important. It wasn't called the portal at the time. It was just guys that were like, I'm coming home. But that's always been something that we've, been successful with. And honestly, if we didn't take transfers, I don't know how many wins Coach and I would have under our belt in our careers, because a lot of big wins at Montclair State were because of guys that transferred back home and said, hey, I'm going to save myself some money. I might commute from Cedar Grove or West Orange or wherever. It's been a big part of our DNA for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how everything is moving at that level. What are some of the new players that that you guys are looking forward to, the season to really making an impact, and what position areas do you think you're going to have some big impact this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with we hired Coach Schuman, who was a teammate of mine, brought him in to help renovate the offense, do some different things over there. So the offense looks very, very different. And the early results were great. On Friday night, we scored 7 out of 8 drives. And we rotated everybody. We played all 4 quarterbacks that we had healthy. We played both offensive lines. So, we looked pretty good. Scored 41 points and had a pretty successful night there. So I think the early returns are great. A lot of those spring transfers I told you guys about, most of them were on offense. We got 2 quarterbacks in. We got 2 running backs in. We got 2 receivers in. And all those guys are looking at potential playing time in the fall. And they got a lot of good evaluation, this spring, and we got to see them under live fire. So there's been a good amount of guys that have come in and like the spring transfers, I think they're all going to contribute, and we got lucky because they're all pretty good kids. There's no baggage with any of those guys. They came right in. They worked hard. We're doing our early morning lifts. They're there every day. So those are the guys I'm excited about, because it's going to be a very new look on offense. And then, defensively, I think we're still looking a little bit. Might have a couple positions that we want to try to get some more competition. And that was part of with the game. Like, hey, we saw what played out on Friday, and I think this is where we can improve. So those are some things we're still looking at. So it's exciting. I don't want to give away too much, but I think some of these new guys, we're going to have some new faces that are playing really big roles this fall.
Now, quick question, Coach. When it comes to like total roster, right? Because I know the NJAC has a cap, a certain number of players you can bring to camp and whatnot. Do those mid-year transfers count towards that, or is there a certain date where it cuts off? And now, all right, now the new class that's coming in, the high school guys, that's a different number. Where does that like cut off?
It's for the NJAC, it's 135. That's it. So
right. So it's straight 135 camp number. Yeah. That's it.
Correct. Now, I don't know. Like we've actually, my first 2 years as head coach, our spring roster was really large. I mean, last spring we had about 115 kids on the roster in the spring. And that was just because of the COVID logjam of all those guys. Right. This year we I think we probably dressed about 75 healthy guys on Friday night.
Okay.
So, and we had a lot of key contributors that we think could really help us. We're out, Anthony Roger, one of our top receivers. He was our leading receiver last year. He didn't play all spring. He had a minor knee surgery. We have 3 offensive linemen that we project to potentially be in the lineup. They all didn't play on Friday. So, but anyway, my point is, I don't know if you could go over the 135 in the spring. I can't imagine anybody would be able to. That's a lot.
That'd be insanity.
Yeah. But I know in the fall it's a hard cutoff at 135, and that's it. I personally want to bring in all 135.
Right.
I know I just got back from our head coaches meeting, and I know most of our league does not bring in that many. They try to keep it like 110 to 120 range. which is fine. That's their decision, and that's okay. I've been part of teams where by week 7 or 8
God.
you have no linemen left and you can't practice efficiently. So
dude, I don't know what the old number used to be, but that was always an issue. Just it didn't matter what number you brought into camp, you were always losing a good amount, and then depending on position wise, you would be really, really tight at certain positions, and now you're like jockeying around like, hey, you might have to do some of this or you might have to do some of that, just because like that rule kind of really hamstrings you that you can't just go grab somebody else, and you're going to lose guys in camp regardless of it, whether it, injuries happen and off the field stuff happens, like where guys just they're gone and whatnot. So it's always that hard number. I don't know. I guess it's coach. Every coach has their own, obviously, method to the madness as to why or why not they wouldn't bring in the 135 mark. But that number used to be what, 120 something?
No, it was 100 when we played.
On the dot. Oh my God.
And then we went up to 125, and then during COVID they jumped it up to 135. So
it's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, and I look at it like there are times when maybe it's not Division I. We don't have these kids signed to a contract,
right?
So you could count on. We just lost a kid yesterday who we're counting on, and he's not going to come back to Montclair. So it's like if you don't have the proper depth, like you can put the rest of the team in jeopardy, and
by not come back, that might mean that doesn't mean he's like hopping in the portal, he's going to another school. Like guys, when we would lose guys, they'd just be like, I'm done with football. I'm just like, I gotta go work, or I just, I don't feel like going to school anymore. I mean, that's the kind of shit we would deal with. I think it was every single year I'd have like a new starting quarter because like someone just decided not to come back because they just didn't feel like it. It was like, holy shit. Like, but that's part of like what you said, like Division III. And we've talked to a bunch of guys recently too. It's like you're playing for like the love of the game and all those other things, like the monetary aspect that goes into like, the college football world today. Like it's just not the same. But at the same time, like the level of talent and competitiveness is just as high, if not higher, than higher level football, and I tell guys all the time, like, I played with way better players at Montclair State than I did at Sacred Heart. And that's just how it was. It all depends on situation and how things work. But you're more of like, you wear the GM hat as well too, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like finagle your roster, like, hey, we only got this many quarterbacks in this many classes. And I know every staff does that, but you really need to be extremely, extremely diligent, and it has to be dialed down to where every slot is, and then those things pop up where you're like, damn, like now I gotta bring in this type, or I gotta bring in this. Like that's really difficult to do. So you being in it for a while, I know what you're doing, but it's a lot, and I don't think a lot of people realize like that's what goes into it at that level.
Yeah, it's not easy, and you get a lot of emails, and you'd like to give more kids opportunity. And I think we talked about this last time I was on the show, but, you get that nice kid that maybe was a solid high school football player. He's like, oh, I just want to try out. I'll give you everything I got. But it's like, I don't have the room. We just don't. And on the other side of it, sometimes if you bring the 135 in and you have one or two spots at the end, you maybe give those kids an opportunity and they might turn out for you. So, it is a tough job, like on top of being a head coach and doing all the other things that you got to do to be the GM, like you said, and to build the roster and to have the appropriate depth at every position and not be lacking in a spot. I mean, last year we didn't bring enough corners in, so we were really banged up at corner, and we had some starters and we were okay, but at practice it was tough because at some days we had 2 scout corners. Hard to practice when you only have 2 scout corners and the other 4 guys are starters. So those things are things you have to think about throughout the offseason as you build the roster.
The at the higher levels, they obviously cap the number of people that are allowed to be on the roster, and So they didn't do any of that with you guys at your level, and I think the big reason is the attrition aspect, right? So because at Division III level, it's higher level of attrition, right? Because of no scholarships, that you can give out directly for athletics. Is it a at 135? That's so interesting because you're saying that like it turns over, and even at that number, that by the mid season you may be still short from a lineman standpoint. Is lineman a difficult group to recruit at Division III level? Is that the hardest group to find the guys that you need?
Yeah, I think linemen and corners, in my experience, are two of the listen. Good football players, they're all hard to. You got to find the right players, right? But I think you could find yourself kids that are serviceable linebackers or running backs that maybe could be a scout team kid that can help you. Offensive linemen are very difficult, obviously from a size perspective, because we all want big guys. And Coach played at Montclair. Our offensive line was massive. But those guys are sometimes hard to find. And sometimes, my philosophy is, take maybe a little bit of a shorter kid that's a little bit more productive. And maybe he doesn't play for you right away, but that kid gets on the field later in his career for you. But it's still, it's hard. It's hard to find linemen. And I think there was one kid from your area, from the shore, who I think he visited every D3 school in the area, in the region, and we're all jockeying for the same kid, and we're all making this pitch for the same kid because they are hard to find. And, it's just, that's the way it is. And you can't have enough good ones. I try to bring 25 offensive linemen every year. Like that's not freshmen, but on my roster, I want to be 5 deep. Yep. So that's not easy. But usually we're around, if we shoot for 25, we're usually getting around 20, which keeps us safe for the year. Corner last year was our issue because I think we only had about 8 on the roster, 9 to start. One kid quit, one kid gets hurt, and then like our starters got hurt. I think we went into the William Patterson game this year, which is about week 7, and both the corners were starting their first game at corner. One was a converted safety. So it's like, it just shows you that if you don't have that depth and you're trying to do some things later in the season, it could be a problem.
And that's like the other thing too, Mike. Like I've told guys, like, you know what I mean? Like that's why you have to be serviceable and you have to be able to play all positions at all times, right? Because that might be now your opportunity, because you just never know. Yeah, you might get recruited as a corner or as a DB or as a safety. But if you can play 4 positions, that might now be your opportunity to go bump up and do something else, because now a coach brings you onto the roster because you can do numerous things for situations like this. Like you always want to have some level, in my eyes, of safety. And I don't know if I'm talking from like personal experience, right? Because I came in as a receiver and then flipped to the other side of the ball and played corner for the last couple games and then back to safety. Like, I don't know if that's something ultimately you recruit individually. Like, hey, we're recruiting an athlete and then fit it into where I need. I just feel like nowadays kids are so accustomed and so programmed to be like, hey, I'm this position and I'm only this position. Whereas, I don't know, it might just be me, or maybe I just don't see it. Like getting recruited as an athlete now, I just don't see many of it or much of it happening.
Yeah, and those guys are the ones that work out well for us. I mean, we've had a ton of success here with recruiting the athlete and then making them into whatever position they fit in mostly in our defense.
Of course, absolutely.
We have a couple tweeners on our offense as well. But, I mean, I can tell you, Mike Ramos, All-American safety for us in 2022, he was a high school quarterback. Brendan Ray was a 5-year all-conference, all-NJAC player because of COVID. He was a high school quarterback, triple option type kid. We didn't know where he was going to play. And then when we got him as a freshman, we're like, this is one of our best 11 athletes, so we just got to figure out how to get him on the field.
Absolutely.
And he kind of played that overhang position for us early and then, moved back to the hash when he was older. So, and those are 2 guys right there that were high school quarterbacks and just good athletes. Zach Saccone was another one. He was a quarterback at Verona. Came to us, moved to safety, played really well. So, yeah, that being able to, I think first off, just having good knowledge of the game that goes a long way. Like those 3 kids playing high school quarterback, I think really,
Right.
Set them apart when it comes to understanding coverages and understanding what the offense is trying to do. But in general, if you're a good athlete and we get you on the field, getting back to what Coach Schuman was talking about before, hard positions to find, again, going to corner, with the hashes being so wide in high school, playing corner is so different at our level than it is for high school.
So different.
So some of these kids we've gotten over the years didn't even really play high school corner. Like we had a kid a couple of years back. His name was Kamani Carrington. He was an all-conference player for us. He wasn't even a corner in high school. He was just a really good athlete that, when he got to us, we put him at corner and he ended up being all-conference. So it really just depends on the kid and what they're willing to learn and how fast they can do it when they get here.
Is corner difficult because of I get why lineman's difficult, obviously, right? It's hard. There's just not enough linemen in general, right, around.
Yeah.
But
corner spacing.
But is corner hard because of speed? Is it hard because of the type of athlete you think you need there? Because or do kids who don't make it like at higher or don't get to a higher level, do they decide not to play at the Division III level? What makes it more scarce at the corner position?
Yeah, I think it's the projection piece. Like I said, like one of our all conference corners from a couple of years ago in 2022 wasn't a high school corner. And a lot of things that high school coaches ask their corners to do, maybe we're doing different things. I mean, we play a lot of man coverage. So, can you find a kid that can just turn and run with somebody and has the hips to do that and has the speed to do that? That stuff doesn't always, maybe you can't see that on the film. Maybe, like I said, maybe some of those guys don't play corner in high school. A lot of guys want to play offense. They want the ball. I have a really, really good athlete coming in this class who we looked at him like, man, this kid could be an outstanding corner for us. But he said, Coach, I want to play receiver. And I'm not going to tell the kid no because he's a great football player, and I think he can help us either way. So I think the desire to get the ball and score touchdowns sometimes for some of these kids too, like they want to be a receiver, they want to be a running back, they want the rock. So I think all those things factor in. We got a kid, Jalil Terrell, who was a 4-year starter for us. He just graduated. He was probably one of the most polished high school corners that I could find. And we kind of knew right away what we had in him, and it showed because he started for us. A lot of the guys you got to have in the program for a little bit and get them ready to do some of the things that we're asking them to do.
Which is why depth to me is so important, right? Especially at that cornerback position. Like it's just, college is so different when it comes to the level of athlete, right? Like it doesn't matter. I don't care what level you're at. But like that corner spot, especially in that defense, and just at that level in general, you have to be able to do things that in high school were really easy for you, or you're just not in high school. If you're playing corner, like you're being asked to do such different things. Because I see it in the way, we do it, or what I see, you're not seeing the level of athlete across from you in terms of the receiver. You know what I mean? When you're matched up against them, you're not seeing the same level of, technique and passing concepts and all of those things. Like it takes a while to adjust to be a college corner, and a high level one. And at the same time, you still have to bring all that physicality with it too, right? And in high school, like you may only see 1 or 2 targets a game if you're playing corner in some of these leagues, right? Like they may have never even seen 20 passes total in 3 years if they're, some high school corners, because some guys just don't chuck it like that. So now to come to the next level where, that's a thing, I think it's a real, real tough spot, to come to, and it takes some time to get adjusted to it. Which is why ultimately I feel like you got to have that depth and you have to go through it every now and then. And it's different than just doing one-on-ones or any of those types of things, dude. Like game experience is the best teacher out there. No doubt.
No doubt. 100%. Yeah. I mean, and again, the high school game is so different. Like think about the arm strength of a quarterback, the average high school quarterback. Like if you're playing, field corner, are you even seeing anything come your way if you're playing a quarterback that can't really get him the ball? Like you're just out there in space. And then on the flip side, if you're a boundary corner, you're an outside linebacker. I mean, you got to play and run, so we'll see some physicality there, but they're very different positions than they are in college. So you're right. I mean, depth is so important to try to build there.
Yeah, those guys need time to get there, so that ultimately when you do put the field, it's not like, and it's still going to be deer and headlights for a couple, you know what I mean? Like, but it's so different. I try to explain it to these guys, like the difference between you breaking on this ball now, or the angle of your break, or where your hand placement is, all of those things, like at that next level, like that's a catch and run for another 20. Like, whereas in high school, that might be an into for you. So like, there's really a lot of technique stuff that has to be the speed of it. It's really hard. They look at me like I'm crazy. Like, I broke up the pass. It's like, dude, next level. Like, if that's where you want to be, like, you have to be attention to detail oriented. So I can see where that's definitely. And then specialists, right? We talked about specialists the other day, right, Dave? Where with Coach from Moravian, and he was talking about, like, when we got here, there was no specialists on the roster. He goes, and now specialist. So that 135 mark has to be pivotal. I know for us, when I was there, special teams mattered. I know it does to you. So I know that's something that goes to it, but that can't be, you know what I mean? I'm sure that's a whole thing too, in terms of specialists and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, I try to bring in, my goal is to bring in a long snapper and a kicker and a punter in every class. Now, it doesn't always work out that way because, kickers are usually a little bit more in tune with what you have on your roster. So sometimes they say, hey, you got a sophomore starter. I'm not going to come here
right,
because I want an opportunity to kick. But usually you find what you can find there. And, if the goal is to bring in one per class at each position, you usually get one every other class. So, we have a couple kickers.
Which works.
Yeah, I have a couple kickers and punters that could do they can do both. And then right now we currently have 2 long snappers on our roster. One's going to be a senior, one's going to be a sophomore. So we have a pretty good balance there. But it is something that you have to do because those poor long snappers, you don't understand their value until you don't have one.
Until he sails 120 yards over your head, or you know what I mean? Like, it's big.
Coach, as far as the summer goes and what you guys start to move into now, like, do you go to a lot of different camps from a recruiting standpoint? Are you hosting any camps? What does that look like?
Yeah, we haven't quite gotten to the point yet where we'll have our own camp. I mean, it's something that I'd always like to try to do. But having a camp is like, what's the analogy somebody used one time? Like, I'd rather not have my own boat. I'd rather go on somebody else's because I could just show up, bring the beer, hang out, and then when it's time to go, I get to go home and I don't have to clean up or put gas in the boat. It's kind of the same thing when it comes to camps. Like, you know what? Monmouth does a really, really good job. I could just go to all the Monmouth camps, show up, evaluate, see really high level talent, and then when it's over, I don't got to clean up or I don't got to deal with any of the nonsense, and I don't have to
see you later.
Anybody. So it's kind of the same thing for us. Like we've gone to a lot of Monmouth camps. East Stroudsburg is 55 minutes from here. So those 2 schools, I think, do a really good job of bringing, talent there that, a lot of those kids are hopeful to be Division I or Division II, but the reality is a lot of them are Division III. So we've had a ton of success with those camps. And then I work a couple team camps as well. Shore's Best, I've been at,
you've done that for a long time. You've done that for a long time.
And we've gotten kids out of that. Ram Camp over at Southern Regional, they do a great job. It's a very long-running camp. And then Mark Hendricks down in Kingsway, he does a team camp, which I think I've probably gotten 2-3 kids every year out of that camp. So the team camps I actually like a little bit better. Again, it's not something I probably would do here at Montclair, but I like to go because you're spending maybe 2 days with a kid as opposed to 5 minutes in Indy at a one-day camp, and those kids are running around doing other things. So, but we will definitely have a presence. I know we'll probably have a couple coaches try to get over to Rutgers as well. I mean, I know those are very large and they're hard to sometimes evaluate for us, but we'll be there. I think AVC's running one at. I'm looking at my board over here. AVC's running one at FDU. So
that's a good. Yep, that's a big one. Yep.
And then we've been at Wagner in the past too. So, like I said, it's kind of like having somebody else's boat. I like to bring the beer and show up and smile, and then I get to go home after. I don't have to worry about too much of the cleanup.
Yeah, and your guys do a great job of getting on the road. You know what I mean? Like they've been, I've already seen them visibly out and doing what they're doing. More so than just camps and whatnot. They're in the buildings. They're making their presence known and whatnot. And ultimately for me, obviously biased, but for Montclair State, like the best recruiting tool that you have is the alumni. That there are so many of us that are coaching all around the state, and I don't think anybody's saying don't go where we went, to be honest, but who knows? I highly doubt it. It's just that we just had such a good experience, but like that is something that I don't think other programs, I don't think they have that alumni basis that is in the coaching world where you can literally pick up a phone and call somebody and be like, hey, I'm looking at this kid. It might not be in his building, but you played against him. What do you think? To get that further level of evaluation that I think you really have to know the kid even more so at a Division III level, because they're not being kept there by anything in terms of scholarship or any of that kind of stuff. So I think that are the things that you guys do really, really well, is you connect with the kid on a different level, and that personal that, I think really kind of hits home for them. And that's ultimately why I think, you get what you get.
Yeah. I think our network is huge, and it's so important in any job to have a good network. And I'm very fortunate to coach at a place, like you said, that we're teaching school. So we, for a long time, that was our number one major, was guys are getting education degrees, getting out, being teachers and coaches. So I am in a very fortunate situation that there's not a lot of schools that I go to across the state that don't have some sort of Montclair State connection, whether it's
crazy.
Coach on staff or a teacher in the building, whatever. So yeah, it helps, because I know a lot of other coaches of Division III level that recruit regionally. They have to introduce the school. They have to walk into a building and say, hey, this is this school. This is what it's all about. I walk in the building and, hey, you guys heard of Montclair State, right? Yeah, okay. And now this is what we have going on right now. So it does make the pitch a little bit easier. We only have 3 full-time coaches on our staff, but I'm so lucky that I have a lot of other coaches that are, part-time, considered part-time, that are getting out and getting on the road. I have a former player who just got done playing for us who, he's already hit 30, 40 schools.
That's crazy.
So it allows our web to be even larger. And, I want to try to hit as many schools and be a presence in as many schools in the state as we can be.
Yeah.
Well, I think, it's interesting that because this is the second time I heard that Division III, like guys not hosting camps. Because I think the Moravian coach had mentioned that the other day, and it's interesting because you could go to these other camps and be able to find the things that you need without having to go through all those logistics. Do you think that's successful too? Because you need to kind of filter through to see who might fall to where you guys are. Because if you had it on campus, it's great because you get to show them your campus and all that kind of stuff, which is nice. But at that point, some kids aren't thinking about Montclair State, and then you kind of have to, as that process starts to shake out, the kids, because I think that's the big thing that's changed a lot in just from talking to kids. Every kid seems to think that they're a much higher level than they are. And I don't think they realize that recruiting has become much more competitive, not less competitive. And so they overvalue based off of sometimes just overvalue where they are, but sometimes they overvalue, the parents overvalue based off of 7-8 years ago how it was, right? So talk about that a little bit, because I think that's your process from that standpoint, because that to me is probably at the Division III level is probably the hardest part. Like you've got to get them to the point to realize this is a place that you can play, have success, get an education. You're going to do really well. It's high level ball. But there's definitely an education component to that with the players. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. You can't have an ego as a Division III coach, because I would say more than half of my current roster probably did not have a dream or desire to play at Montclair State. And I'm not trying to say that in a negative way. It's just the reality. I mean, kids, you grow up in Jersey, maybe you want to go to Rutgers, you dream of going to Penn State. You don't have young kids that are like, I'm dreaming of going to Montclair State. Maybe parents played or whatever. But, for a lot of kids, that dream is something that they want to pursue, and they still think they are in that mix when they're really not. And if I were a coach that had an ego, that for every kid that ignored me right away, like maybe when I talked to him as a junior, then I'd have nobody on the roster, and a lot of kids go and they say, well, I'm a Division II player, I'm a Division I player. And maybe they even have an opportunity to be a walk-on or do something like that. And then they realize the level of play here and the opportunity it provides and the affordability. And then all of a sudden they come back around. So, I can't have an ego and shut those kids out. I mean, I can't tell you probably how many kids I have on this roster that maybe the first time I DM them or talk to them, I didn't really get a good response or receptive, but now they're playing for us and they love it and it's a great experience. So yeah, I think that ties into the camps, because if I were to have a camp, I could probably get a lot of kids here and really push it, but how many of those kids are actually the kids we're looking for? Whereas, maybe there's juniors right now that still think I could play at Monmouth or I could play at Rutgers when they can't, but they really could play for us. So if I have a camp the same day as Monmouth, which way is that kid going to go? He's going to go to Monmouth probably 10 out of 10 times. Maybe 9 out of 10 times that kid's going to pick the Division I camp over us. So it does make it easier, and I have more access to those kids. I get their information when I go to the camp. I see those kids work out, and I stay in the mix. Something I've always done with recruits at a certain level is, especially local. Sometimes I go in and kid lives in Caldwell or kid lives in Cedar Grove or Verona, next town over, and they're just like, coach, like, I want to go D1, and then I don't want to stay close to home. I want to go further away. I mean, Derek, you probably maybe had some of those feelings as well. Like, hey, I don't want to stay in North Jersey. I want to go away to college.
Yep,
and,
100%.
I can't tell you how many kids I have on my roster that I had that initial conversation. I said, look, that's fine. I get it. Just have good communication with me. And if you decide you want to come back home, give me a call. And we get a lot of kids that do that.
One of the things that I think kids don't realize too is that I would say as high as 99% of the kids, no matter what level they end up being at, it's not the actual school that they thought they would be at. So it's so few that, I don't know, that dream of being at Penn State or Ohio State or whatever that end up being there. I think back to even myself, like every school in the country was recruiting me at the FBS level. And when I was a junior, literally everybody. And then I only ended up with 2 FBS offers, none of which I wanted to go to, and ended up at UConn, and that's a reality check. And that's back when obviously, FCS there was a lot more schools in FCS. They weren't all going to FBS. And, but I remember the first time I went up to Connecticut, and I was like my father, we drove through it on the way to other school. I think coming back from Syracuse, I think I went to Syracuse on unofficial, and coming back, and unofficials aren't like they are now. Back then it was actually, literally there was only 15 kids there. It wasn't like now, like everybody come. And I remember I went through there, and it was the winter time, and I was like, they were recruiting me pretty heavily as a junior, and we're like, oh, let's just swing through, because we knew them from basketball and stuff. So we swing through, and I was like, there's no way I'd ever go to this school. No way in hell I'll ever go to this school if this is what level I end up, if I fall to this level, and obviously that's where I end up going to school. So I say that to say that, and I loved it. I had a great time. I had a great experience, So I say that to say that, it's important for kids not to close doors, because you don't know what's going to happen. And, just like Derek had a situation, and he ended up going to Montclair, and it worked out to be a great experience for him, right? And God has a plan for you, and sometimes the plan isn't exactly what you think. It's not exactly what you think that plan is, but you just have to trust in the fact that you're going to end up at the right and keep your eyes open so you can end up at the right place for you, and that's ultimately what it is. And I say that because I've met so many guys that obviously are coaches living in New Jersey that are Montclair State. I feel like Montclair State might be the number one spot to go if you want to be a high school coach in New Jersey. Like literally, they're everywhere. So a lot of guys obviously post their football career, do want to coach and teach, and that's a phenomenal opportunity. Like I've never been anywhere that there wasn't a guy that wasn't a Montclair State guy that I either coached against, you know what I mean, or coach with me at some point. So it's a great opportunity from that standpoint. Talk a little bit about how you bridge that, because I think that's an art form. I think you've done a really good job of that. Bridge that mindset, like to help them understand that, hey, you got to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you. And how do you bridge that? I think that's a unique skill set at the Division III level, and guys like yourself who are successful do that really, really, really well. How do you kind of handle that?
Yeah. For me, I'm fortunate because I'm at a place where I think it sells itself. Montclair is a reputable school. It's been around a long time. There are a lot of alumni out there. It's a beautiful campus in a great location. So, I don't have to, like I mentioned before, I don't ever have to walk into a school and introduce Montclair State. Like kids usually have some sort of familiarity with the school, whether their friend went there, played there, coached, whatever.
Right.
So I'm fortunate in that aspect because then, my pitch is pretty simple. I'm like, look at the school for what your return on investment is going to be. Like you're going to get a great education. You're going to be in a school that's graduating thousands of kids every year. So now your network becomes so much larger. I mean, I'm not on this podcast right now if it weren't for my Montclair State network. Think about that. I'm only on this right now because of my network. Derek and I, we cross paths at Montclair. That becomes my network. If I went to a different college, I might not be on this podcast. I might not. That's something small, but that's where you're going to get your jobs. That's how you're going to meet people. It's your brand. I tell kids sometimes they get so caught up in the football side of things. I say, don't even look at the football piece. When you hand your resume in and you say, this is what school I went to in the Northeast, everybody's going to hear of Montclair State. It's not a small place. We've had some successful people graduate from here. So, you go to that school in Bumble, wherever, and you hand your resume in. As soon as you walk out that door, the guys that are interviewing are going to say, what school is this? Where did this kid go to college? Is that a real school? And I tell them all the time, it's not worth it to play football and do that. You can play a good brand of football here where you're going to get a good education. You're going to have a network of people. And our location, if you're a business major, why wouldn't you want to come here when we're across the street from New York City? If you're communications, why wouldn't you want to come here? If you're teaching, why wouldn't you want to come here because of all the teachers that can help you get a job? I mean, all of our big top majors at the university that football players usually are studying, they have a network built in as soon as they walk in the door. And the last thing is the price. And kids get caught up and say, I'm going to be D1 or I'm going to be D2. Okay. How much is that going to cost you? How in debt are you going to be when this is all said and done? For us, our price is typically more affordable from the rip, just our sticker price. And then with the kind of aid we give to Jersey kids, you might be getting a partial scholarship to a D2 school, but we're still cheaper. And
Correct.
What are you going to get out of it when it's done? You're going to go in the middle of nowhere just to say you play D2 football and then graduate with a degree and get an internship at where? And what are you going to do about it? Come here, you have a great internship, great experience, get a degree, get a job, and hopefully you're not paying too many bills back when you're done.
That's a great point. People don't realize, especially if you're going to live in the Northeast or, post undergrad, or, you're going to go back home, or you're going to be somewhere in that. Some of the schools that are out there that have football, at Division II or Division III level. I've never heard of those universities, and if someone's resume came across my desk from that university, I wouldn't even look at it because I've never even heard of it. I think that's a really important point when you're going to get a job. If you're going to be in business in New York City, or you're going to be a teacher, or whatever it is, right? People will know Montclair State as a brand from a school standpoint. And you're 100% right. Like, you could go to XYZ University just to play football, but if you're already going to XYZ University that nobody's heard of, then chances are you're not playing beyond college anyway. So you're going to have to go get a job or find what your next opportunity is, and that's going to require a degree that people know of. And I think that's a really, really important point. And I think that I've had players that I've coached that have chosen not to go, like, to a Division III school, and they're, I can tell, I was like, why are you going out there? You know what I mean? And their degree's worth nothing, and I've, when kids have gone to places that are known and have degrees that are valuable, of reputable schools like Montclair State, they usually do very, very well. And I think that's an important thing for kids to young men to understand, because I think that's a really valuable point that you bring up. I mean, you kind of you're underselling it, but really, really valuable, because if you're competing with this school, and some of them are even decent in football at the Division III level, but it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like, what does it matter? Because in the end, you're going to graduate and you're going to go, and you got to find the next opportunity, and you want to be able to have that network that can help you from that standpoint.
Yeah, and something that I've really changed my philosophy, and it's going to sound a little crazy, but when I sit a kid down in my office and I say, what are your goals? And he tells me the NFL, and that's all he says, I'm like, I'm probably not going to recruit this kid anymore. And I know it sounds crazy, and I know I have NFL jerseys hanging on my wall, but, like, the reality of it is 99% of the players that play at any division, I mean, what was it, 15 kids out of D3 last year?
Maybe.
And we had a really outstanding player that we're still waiting for that call, and he's, got some maybe avenues. But the reality of it is 99% of the guys that play Division III football are not playing past this. Maybe overseas, Europe type thing, whatever. But let's be real. Why are you here? What are you here to do? And if a kid comes in here and just that's all he could tell me, he's like, I just want to play in the NFL. Like, dude, this might not be a good fit for you, because they're the same kids that maybe they want to handle school, or they don't, because they just don't see the big picture. So trying to recruit kids that see the big picture, and I think you see it with certain successful teams. I mean, Susquehanna, Muhlenberg, those kids aren't saying I'm going to the NFL. Do they have some really good ones that potentially?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
But those kids are all there because those schools are pretty good schools, reputable schools that have a good education, and they don't have a lot of attrition. And that's why those two schools right now are two of the better teams around here, is because they have kids that have the right frame of mind. And that's something that my philosophy has changed over the last couple of years as head coach. It's like, why are you here? As a recruit, why are you here? Because I could sell you the right reasons that I know as a 36-year-old make a lot of sense. But if you're not grasping that concept, then probably not going to be a good fit. And that's something that is really, I've kind of sharpened as I've done this for the last couple of years, where, finding the right kid and understanding the value of a Montclair State education goes a long way.
I think that's one of the biggest things we're seeing now with the whole transfer portal and the NIL thing and all of those types of, with the movement within just college football in general. I don't care what level it is, the movement about, like, but it's about the locker room still at the end of the day. And if the right pieces aren't being plucked and put into that locker room setting, then it's never going to work on the field. You can go and get the best players out there, but if it's not the right fit for your team, for your campus, for your program, your organization, whatever you want to call it, like, it's just not going to work. And you've seen examples of it when it comes to, Florida State goes undefeated one year, and then all of a sudden the next year they try and they do whatever, and it's just not right. And I think that's a big piece of this whole thing is, go where you're valued, go where you're going to actually, like, where the system fits you. Because look, if a guy wants to play college football, we can find him a spot to play college football regardless of where it is or whatnot. Like, but you have to be willing to go and do what it is that needs to be done. And I think that's a really, really tough thing for these guys now is into a place where, I don't know what's going on and it's a new setting and I'm being asked to do this or I'm being asked to do that. But ultimately, it has to be the right fit within the locker room. It's why I tell guys, visit as many schools as possible because you want to get on that campus because a lot of your time, look, yes, it's going to be football based, but you're still going to have a life outside of football. And if all you're thinking about is football, you're going to be absolutely miserable. I don't care what it is. Or you're going to be doing things that you shouldn't be doing. And now we're talking about problems and it's not even right. So visit the school, talk to the players, get on campus when there's kids there, right? Don't go visit, show up. Like, it just, I think that's really important for guys that want to play at the next level. Like, go visit as many schools as you can because there's a lot more outside of football. And then ultimately, like you said, like Division III, like if you're playing Division III, man, like NFL, I get it. Like, that's everybody's dream and all that. But like, you want to set yourself up for the future. And if you can come out of school, one, figuring out what you want to do, right? And then two, with very little debt, like, you're going to be sitting pretty. Because I'll tell you what, based on personal experience, coming home from Sacred Heart, based off of my situation, saved me a shit ton of money. It put me in the field of what I wanted to do with my life. And then, I wasn't even thinking, playing ball was just a bonus on top of it, So that's really kind of how it works. Like, you got to find the right fit. And I know it's hard to look down the road and you want to play the NFL and all that kind of shit. But like, that's sometimes where I think a parent needs to step in and be like, what do we want to do with our life? Like, football is great, and I love that you love it, but like, what are we going to do? Okay. And that's what I think needs to be looked at more so in choosing a school to play at, not just, hey, this football team's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. The football, I tell guys all the time, football is the carrot on the stick. Like, for me, I have 2 college degrees, and I wouldn't have either of them if it weren't for football. Because I didn't really care too much about education. I was like, a decent high school student because I just showed up. But, I wanted to play college football. So coming to Montclair, I had to get my grades right because I knew Coach G would never take me if I'm an undersized player that has bad grades. So, that kind of got me on the right track where it forced me to be a better student and it forced me to care about those things.
Yeah.
And, the reality of it was sometimes I just didn't really care too much. I didn't even really know what I wanted to do. And then I got to college and I was like, well, coaching is exactly what I want to do for my year as Coach Aggresta's assistant. But,
shit, I don't know how you wanted to do that under that animal, that lunatic.
I got some stories for sure. And then
hell no.
My master's degree was the same thing. Like, I wanted to be a college head coach. And, I was out of school for 10 years, but I'm like, this could be something that could help my resume to be a head coach. And that's what I ultimately want to do. So I went back, sucked it up, and got my master's degree. And if it weren't for football, I don't have those 2 things hanging on the wall. So if it's the carrot on the stick for a kid, yeah, we love it. And it is a big part of why we might choose a school. But if it's the carrot on the stick that gets that kid a college degree and changes his life, then let it be that carrot on the stick.
100%, man. I mean, because look, you look at a lot of the guys that were on our roster, man. They sure as hell, like, school and the next step and all that stuff. But like, ultimately, by the time you're a senior, you figure that out, right? And Montclair helps you figure that out because, it just, what are you going to do with your life is a constant, like, move in the future, whether it be the coaches that we had or any of those kind of things. Like, that was the big step. Yeah, they wanted to win football games, but ultimately it was like, how are we all going to be successful, like, after we go do this? Because ain't none of us really played in the NFL, dude. So we all love this game. Like, let's figure it out and like, let's work together. But that was always just a focal point of the team itself. And I think you've kind of kept that and ran with it. And I think for this generation, like that's a real kind of hard concept to see, because all they see on social media is the 1%, right? Like they see this guy and they want to compare to this, or they want to compare to that. And it's like, that's not your path. Like your path could be this. You just have to kind of hit it and run with it. And it's difficult for them. I get it, because everybody wants to, oh, I could be that guy. But I think that self-awareness is where us as coaches can help that, and kind of, unfortunately have to be the bad guys sometimes and just tell them like, yo, man, this could be you, and this could be, you could be real successful, and get to actually play when you get there, right? Like you don't have to sit for another 4 years to get maybe a shot and an opportunity. You can go in and you can work hard and you can play.
Yeah, I actually just had that conversation with one of my players. He was committed to Division II school and realized, you know what, financially this doesn't make a ton of sense. He chose Montclair, and he was in the lineup he's gonna be a senior this year. He was in the lineup as a sophomore and was productive as a sophomore. And we talked just recently, and we were talking about his career and where it's going, and if there's a chance to play after and everything. And I said, look, I think something you need to understand is your accolades and your play time are because you are a very good football player, but because you're at Division III. So had you gone to that Division II school, maybe you're not in the lineup until you're a junior. Maybe
100%.
They have other guys or transfers or whatever. Yep. So part of the reason why you're in this position where you have such good accolades and you are a leader on the team and one of our better players is because you chose a Division III school and you're a good football player. So guys, I think don't realize that sometimes. You get a chance to get in the lineup earlier when you're a Division III player if you're that good.
Right. And it's ultimately like, it's why I tell guys like, hey, man, you might want to aim for different positions, right? Like I get it. Everybody wants to be the receiver. Everybody wants to be catching touchdowns. And it's funny that you bring this up, because I feel like I literally have this conversation with guys at least once a week. It's like, man, I understand you want to be the running back. I understand you want to be a quarterback. I understand that's what it is. And you want to score touchdowns. But there's one ball. Okay. And even if you're on a team that throws the ball all over the place, how many targets are you going to get? How many formations are you going to be in? Right. And then ultimately, like, how many balls are you going to catch? How many opportunities are you going to have to be that guy? I said, I just don't, it's the same with guys that are like, I'm a tight end. It's like, buddy, maybe you should go be a lineman, like be a tackle. Because there's 5 of those, like there's 5 offensive linemen on the field at once. And I understand you think you're this or you're that, but maybe you could project to be this, man, and play like right now. Like those opportunities, I think, are what guys don't understand, that at that next level are so different. It's why I probably push guys more so than not to go play defense, because, if you can play in that defensive backfield, now, like you might have 5 opportunities to play depending on what defense it is. And you could play first down through third down. And then, hey guys, take a look at this. Like special teams guys are mostly usually made up of defensive guys more so than offensive guys. So now you get another 22 snaps a game if you're playing specials. Like, I don't think guys understand that, where they go from high school ball and never leaving the field to college, and now you're playing 3 snaps and going to the sideline. Like that was it was a huge adjustment for me. It was really, really hard to sit there and, think like, hey, I can do that better than him, but he's playing, but I'm on the defensive side of the ball, or I'm on the offensive side of the ball. Like that's a huge adjustment too. And that's why you want to go to a school that's going to afford you that opportunity to play as much as possible, because, it's just, do you really want to practice all week, not play in the game for 3 years? Like, do you have what it takes to do that? Because if that level that you want to go to, that's what it's going to be. And I don't think they really understand that. Most of them have never played scout team, right? Like never been that guy. And all of a sudden freshman year, they're on the scout team and they're like, what are we doing? Like, I'm this guy. No, you're not, bud. Like, no, you're not. Like you got to earn it and you got to get there. And it's really hard for them. And I don't know how to bridge that, right? Like I can only say it. I think they just have to experience it, but they don't get that. Like go where you want, where you're going to play. especially now when everything's splitting hairs, right? Like, I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but
yeah, for us, I try to be transparent in recruiting and explain exactly where I see them. I think a hard thing too that a lot of recruiters will make that mistake is they will say that to a kid, like, "Hey man, you come here, like we don't have guys here, you're gonna play right away." I refuse to say it.
hell
So
no.
yeah, so I hear what you're saying too. It's kind of a tough thing to be on both sides of it because I agree with you. Like you want to go somewhere where you're going to be able to play. Don't go to
Right.
a higher level where you're just going to be a backup. Come to a lower level where you can play. But then also, we got good football players here already. So it's like,
Shit, yeah, dude.
When you're talking to a kid, like I just say, look, I think you're really good, and this is what the room looks like. I think there's potential for you to come in and contribute if you learn the system, learn everything. But I don't promise it to you. And I think sometimes there's younger coaches out there that don't know what to say. There's schools that have a harder time recruiting than probably we do, or some of our other local, arrivals that have big schools that can get kids.
Right.
So they just tell the kids what they want to hear. I mean,
Nah.
we're dealing with a recruit right now who is committed to us, but there's another school telling him he's going to play right away. And it's like,
Right.
if that school gets a Dell State transfers down at your position, guess what? You ain't playing right away now. So it's nice that coach is telling you what you want to hear, but and that ties back into what we just talked about before. Like, what does that school offer you outside of football that makes sense? Because if you're comparing Division III schools, right, and like you said, hey, go somewhere you want to play. You don't want to be on scout team for a long time. Fine, I hear you, but also, like, go to a school where the degree is going to be worth something.
Right.
And maybe if you come to Montclair, maybe you don't play until you're a junior, and maybe you could have went to other D3 school and played as a freshman or sophomore, but the team's not
But the
very
degree
good
is going to
and the
matter.
degree not worth anything. So at the end of the day, like, what's the bottom line? In Montclair, a lot of times our school, state school, financially is the smartest decision to make. And maybe you do have to sit a little bit longer at Montclair than you would at whatever school. But
shit, I did.
Yeah. I think that sometimes you have to be mature enough to weigh all those things out and not just be told what you want to hear.
I think, dude, I think that's the best way to do it is the honesty thing. And look, and if that guy wants to go somewhere else because you're being honest, like that's what it is, he'll probably bounce back anyway. Ultimately, if you keep that relationship, I think ultimately they'll respect the honesty. Look, I was told a lot of things, like, you know what I mean, moving forward, but you have to work hard and whatnot. And I totally agree with what you're saying. I think a lot of younger coaches, when they get on the road and they get in the room with parents and kids and coaches, they get kind of clammed up when it comes to playing time because they know if I tell this kid, hey, you're not going to play till you're, there's the risk that somebody else is going to say, hey, you're going to play right away. And that's kind of part of it. I really feel that way. I think honesty at the end of the day is the best policy, but that's going to be everybody's own prerogative. And we know that's not how everybody does it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said before, if me not telling you that you're going to get playing time makes me lose you, then it's probably not meant to be. It's not a good thing.
100%.
Well, I have one last question. In today's world of 24/7, you guys have little off period. What is your hardest job as head coach?
Hardest job.
Hardest thing you have to take. What is the most difficult thing that you have to deal with on a daily basis? Because I know you deal with a lot, but what is the most difficult thing that you have to constantly challenging you?
Yeah, I think managing the personalities, and that's probably the hardest. Because I put myself in their shoes. Like, I know what it was like to play. Like,
Sure.
coach will tell you, like, I'm tiny. I'm not a college football size person. But
Right.
I played for 4 years, and in those 4 years when I played, and as smart as I was knowing the situation, I still was upset because I wasn't getting more playing time. Like, in my mind, I was like, I want to play more. Now, I never was a problem at practice. I never was that guy. So, but from that experience, like, all of my guys are probably better athletes and probably better equipped to play. I know they all feel that way. So managing those personalities and understanding that they all have a desire to play and start, and they all have dreams of being that guy.
Yeah.
And trying to make them understand their role and buy into their role. That part's hard. I think just the possibility of a kid maybe screwing something up with the amount of kids we have. Like, you're always going to have somebody that does something a little stupid. Like, we have a really good group of kids. I'm really I really love my guys right now. Like, I don't really have any headaches or anything like that. But you are going to get a guy that fails a class. You are going to get a guy that, has a problem with a bill. You are going to get a guy that, has this or that. Like, those things pop up. So I do think, like, the unknown and having to always potentially deal with something, that's a difficult thing, And I think the bigger thing that kids don't realize and other people don't realize, like, hey, I'm being judged on 10 Saturdays out of the year.
Yep.
Yeah, I know people look at it. We have a 3.0 GPA and that's all good and everything. But,
Doesn't matter.
10 Saturdays out of the year, people are going to come and see the product that I've been working on the other 355 days. So sometimes people make decisions that don't realize how much that affects me and my livelihood. Like we talked about the portal. You are on our team. I'm counting on you. And then you just decide I'm going to go in the portal. Like, you hurt my livelihood here, and that's difficult, and it's like kids make bad decisions and it's like that affects me, that affects my full-time coaches here. So that is probably the most difficult thing, is just people don't understand that and understand like how much work we put into it and sometimes how much like the little things that they think is not a big deal become a big deal. So, I would say that's the hardest part, but honestly, the hard parts, the good parts far outweigh that. I got a great group of kids. They're fun to be around. They love football. They work their butts off. I mean, the numbers we had this year in the weight room, there was nobody that was like completely just not doing anything we needed them to do. Everybody is really dialed in. It's a youthful team. We brought a large freshman class in last year because we knew the 43 seniors were leaving. So I think that they're, green, but they're like excitable, and this Canada trip was like a great bonding experience. And that's a very scary trip to go on when you bring 100 people over the U.S. border. But the kids were extremely well behaved and were there for the business, but then also got to, at one point I dropped them off and said, all right, guys, be back at the dorm in 2 hours. And they all went off and they all were back. I didn't have to worry about that. So the good parts far outweigh the bad parts for sure. But, you do have some of those on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's a great point. The personalities, that's always what it is. It's managed. It comes down to managing people. So it's awesome having you on, Coach. Congratulations on all your success, beating up on some Canadian football players.
Yeah.
I love it. It's great.
Yeah, Canadian rules were a little bit different. We had to figure some of those things out.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I can't even imagine that, dude. That must
Guys
be wild.
to the line at once and stuff like that.
12 on 12.
Yep.
Goal
post in the front of the end zone.
Yep. There's a thing called the Rouge, which is like all kinds of things. So I you should look it up because it'll make your head spin as an American football coach because you're like, I don't even know what the heck I'm doing. I actually had to coach a play in the game on Friday night to avoid a Rouge, which was something we wouldn't have normally done in America. So it's kind of fun to get out of your comfort level a little bit with that.
And you did three downs too, right?
We played a hybrid, but we played 4 downs on Friday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But
because I had read that you guys were going to do like more of a hybrid type of gig, which kudos to them too for kind of adopting and kind of go with it. But you played in a hell of a stadium. It was really something that was really cool. Because I don't one thing at the D3 is I don't think these guys get to experience that aspect of it in terms of facility wise. Like, look, there's some nice stadiums and things of that, but that place was really, really nice, dude.
Yeah, it was a beautiful campus. University of Ottawa was like the second largest campus in Canada. I think Toronto has a bigger one. If what I was told is true. So it was a nice setup, nice facility. It was really cool. So
yeah, it looked like they took care of you.
They did, and hopefully this propels us into a good season. I think we only have 81 days, I think, until camp starts. So it's
not long.
Much shorter summer, and these guys got a really good experience, and hopefully they really bonded, and I'm looking forward to a good season. I know you guys, spoke with Coach Rulli. You got to make sure we at the Breakfast Bowl this year, man.
Breakfast Bowl, brother. I was at the first one, dude. Like, we're gonna have to make something work for this second one because
Montclair, man.
That's it, dude. Yep.
I need you guys up here. I think
That's
you're
good,
both Ham guys, aren't you?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Hell yeah. Not even close.
Yeah.
I don't even say that shit, and I've been down here for years now. I still
know,
get rocked. No way.
You
Can't do it.
See? I need some
Can't
more
do
support up here. That game was the only overtime game in the NJAC last year. I was looking at our.
That's insane. That was wild because I'm telling you, it was a hell of a game back and forth, and it was like blow for blow, punch for punch, and there was a huge crowd. Like it was a lot. It honestly, it took me back to Rowan Montclair, like even before me, when it was like, that was it. And I love that you guys created something like that within the NJAC. It's really, really cool. But we'll definitely have to get it and look into something to get something done with that. Definitely, 100%.
What's the date on that game so I can put that down?
It is October 11th, Saturday, October 11th. Yeah. It'll be a day game.
Saturday. I'm just putting it in.
Yep.
Yeah, we need you guys on site. Maybe the week of, get some practice B-roll. Let's go.
Yeah.
There was a lot of shit. Yeah. Do the whole gig. I might as well. It's sick. It was really, really cool.
Maybe do like a pregame thing. Like me and you could do a pregame thing, Derek. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. Because we covered both.
No,
that'd be good. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it was cool.
Hype it up more.
It was awesome.
Yeah, that was good. And
yeah,
we only promoted it for like a week last year because Rulli.
Yeah, it was that. Yeah, now you can get going.
Now with a little bit more hype, I gotta meet with Rules at some point over the summer and maybe get some ideas in place for just promotion and cross promotion. But it was cool. I mean, they're enemies and we hate them, but that Rulli is a friend of mine that he's on board of trying to get this going. And like you said, it kind of brings some juice back to that Rowan Montclair rivalry, which we all know is a really, really great rivalry in a school that's very similar to ours.
Derek's going to have to be that Pat McAfee at Montclair State to get them all pumped up before the game. You know what I mean? Get all fans going. Both sides don't need much amping up because a lot of these guys have either played against each other in high school or, it came down to like, hey, I'm either going here or there. Like that's the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? Like both guys kind of crisscross in the recruiting worlds in terms of that, like, go down south, go up north. So there's a lot of like, there's a little bit of hatred there. I give it. I still
want that. You want that in a rivalry game. You want that that blood a little bit. Like that makes it fun. It makes those games memorable. And obviously we came out on the losing end this year, which was unfortunate for us, but it was still just a great atmosphere, a great game. And if your season isn't going the way you plan, when you have a rivalry game at the end of the year, it's still something to play for. It still keeps
correct. Yep.
I'm glad that we got that going in that direction.
Yeah, it's awesome. Definitely.
Cool.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right, guys. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Have a great day.
Hey, man. Enjoy the weekend. Take care, bud.
You too.
Bye. Excellent stuff. Really good.
So wild.
What is?
I just think it's so cool that they got to go up there and do that, And look, he's smart. Graduated 43 seniors, breaking in a new offense, a lot of young guys, a lot of mid-season transfers to allow him to now go, 10 more practices and then finish with a game that D3, like, you don't really do that. He needs to get an evaluation in terms of like, look, I need to go and now bring in some more of these guys in this second window, or you know what I mean? Like of on the road recruiting, like I need to go find these, and this because based off of this game, you know what I mean? Whereas a lot of other guys, like, look, unless you're in that situation, you're not going to get the opportunity to do that. And I think it's cool because I too, like, I think like there was a whole bunch of not a whole bunch, but like other D3s that had done the same thing, right? Like I believe Muhlenberg went out to Italy, right? And they did that, and they played a game in Italy. And like you said, at the D3 level, to do things like that, it's really, really, really cool because you're not getting many opportunities to do those types of things. And I think it's a great way, like you said. You asked them whether or not it like that helped him bring in guys or whatever. Like, yeah, they did. Because when he put it on their thing, they were like, cool, I get to go travel to wherever, like, and play a spring game where normally I wouldn't. Like, yeah, I think that's something that ultimately helped him in bringing guys in and whatnot. So it's really a cool thing. I love that they're allowed to do that at that level.
No doubt about it. Really cool. I think you need to have those things to help players, want to be more a part of it. And I think that's a really, really good thing. And that's cool. Going to Canada is fun. That would be a great.
I mean, look, you saw like a couple years ago, Michigan did it, right? Like Michigan went over there and did, went over to Europe and did it. Yeah, Harbaugh did. Yep, a couple years ago.
He went and played there, or
well, they did their spring. They did like a week of spring there. They did like time over there, and yeah, I just think that's like I said, like if you're cool. anything that you can switch things up, and Mike does a great job of that. When it was kind of one way for so long. And then, he's, all about doing things different or, opportunities for his players. Like I said, it's just, and it's not because it's where I went. I just think he would be able to, a lot of this stuff that he would be doing if he was doing it at a different place would be working, just as well. I just think his approach to the game itself and at the D3 level has to be a little different in terms of that, because, like you said, and he said it too, like nobody is in high school saying like, man, I hope I get to go to Montclair State. You know what I mean? Right. It's usually a second option or, oh shit, the realization is that like, I ain't playing that big time that I thought, but I promise, like, it's different. When you go to those level schools, I think a lot of guys just don't understand that you're still going to be playing a very, very high level of football. And to be honest, like that's why I used to love when we played like Iona, because like we would go out and we'd beat Iona, and then people would be like, "Well, you just beat a 1AA school," and it's like, yeah, because we have better talent than a 1AA school. Like it's just the situation for the most part, and so that's I just don't look at the level.
During the old but when they had the FCS, I think that might have been when you were playing. They still had that, where they didn't have that many scholarships. Some of those FCSs, like the North.
Oh yeah, they were. Like the NEC. Like we were. What were they called? They called them like mid majors. We were 1AA mid major, right? Because you only had a limited number of scholarships. Yeah, it was Sacred Heart, Central Connecticut, Albany, St. Peter's when they had a team, Wagner, Robert Morris, you know what I mean? Like that whole slew of whatever were the 1AA mid majors, where you didn't go to the true FCS playoffs and all that kind of stuff. But it was just, Iona was in there and Marist was in there, and it was different, but it was still, but I just,
no, it's
go
good.
Like I just like that he's he talks about going to school for after school. Like, what are you going to do with your life? Because you want to be a teacher.
Big part.
Just go right there, right? You want to be a teacher. You want to be a coach. Like, go there, play 4 years of football, and understand like, this is where it's going to be. You come out with no debt. You're set, right? You got your teaching certs. Your network is phenomenal. You can do whatever you want to do when it comes to the world that you already know. That's what I think is different about where Montclair is too, like location wise, dude. Right. You're like smack in the middle of whatever, like you're not in the middle of nowhere, you have access to do whatever, wherever you want. For the most part, if you're in Jersey, you're still close to home, right? Even if you're coming from the shore or you're coming from South Jersey, like, what are you, 2.5 hours on the Parkway? The school is literally right off the Parkway, access to the city and all that network. Like it's a really good place. And like you said, he doesn't have to sell it much, which is, I think, part of the whole battle for any D3 coach. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. No, he's doing a great job, and it's it's the kind of thing where he's only going to get better. He's a young guy, you know what I mean? So
if you don't ever want to leave there, he could be there for as long as Coach G was, if not. You know what I mean?
No doubt about it. All right, I got to run. I want to give you a call on the road though, because I got to go get a physical. So hopefully I'm all healthy.
Go get him.
All right, great pod. I'll talk to you later.